But first, the Attorney-General, Mark Dreyfus, this morning introduced the actual legislation that has the question in it that you'll vote on very shortly this year. It obviously went into the House of Representatives. There'll be a whole process. There'll be parliamentary inquiries. Let's assume it gets passed by the Parliament. It will then be put to you for a vote in between October and December this year. And the PM is not for turning. He says it's modest change, and he's relying on the emotion and goodwill that almost all of us have for Aboriginal people. We all want their lives improved. Question is this the right way to do it? Last night in the House of Reps, Keith Wolahan, Liberal member for the seat of Menzies in Victoria, delivered an important adjournment speech about the significance of the Voice referendum and a fair amount of constitutional detail.
Australia's constitution contains little of the soaring rhetoric which is familiar in the constitutions of many other lands. That is one of its strengths, the wording that has been proposed. And I must admit, when people asked me over the last 12 months what wording would come, I never thought it would be this radical. I really didn't. It's not modest. When the questions are put from this side and indeed throughout this nation about justiciability, they are serious questions that should be answered. And it concerns me that they haven't been asked and answered on the side of the government.
I'm thrilled to say Keith Wolahan joins us now. Of course, before Parliament, he was in the military and he is also a barrister, as well as Chris Merritt, Legal Affairs contributor at the Australian, Vice President of the Rule of Law Institute of Australia. Gentlemen, welcome. Keith, terrific speech last night. I know you don't get a lot of time on these adjournment speeches, but you got to the nub of the issue. And I think the points you made about the primacy of the voice once it's in the Constitution, regardless of what the PM says, he says, just get it in there and we'll fix it up if we have to via a parliamentary piece of legislation. You hit the nail on the head. Tell us why that's so important. Australians understand the point you're making.
Thank you, Peter. One of the things I noticed when I'm in the Parliament is that sometimes in the gallery above us are primary school students who come to visit. And whenever we talk about the voice, I realise that this will last, if it passes, long beyond the people in the Parliament now. And if it is not a good thing for our democracy, and we are a good democracy, but if it detracts from it, then we have failed them, we've failed future generations. So what we're debating this year, I think there's no more serious things than we turn our mind to. And when we see questions put to the other side, there's this visceral reaction that how dare you ask questions, because they want to focus on the emotion and they want to focus on feeling. But emotion and feeling won't matter in the High Court when they actually interpret the text and there are consequences to how we govern ourselves.
Well, let's go to that point of interpretation, Chris. Two of the experts the Prime Minister likes to quote, Anne Toomey and Professor Williams. We'll start with Anne Toomey. She made the point in the Australian today that the voice can make representations and that it cannot be altered or limited by an Act of Parliament once the voice is enshrined in the Constitution. Now, help people understand that point, because the PM likes to think it can be retrofitted, fix it up after the event if it goes too far. That's not constitutional law, of course, is it?
We've got about a century of precedents showing that what the Prime Minister is trying to argue just won't fly. If it's in the Constitution, it's the responsibility of the High Court, and the High Court will determine what the legal effect of provisions in the Constitution are, and that goes all the way through to the obligations and implications on public servants and ministers and cabinet and maybe even the Governor-General. So I think Anne Toomey and George Williams have come around to the correct traditional interpretation of the Constitution.